Okay, so you've spent endless hours learning the fundamentals of computer science, those pesky data structures and algorithms, and then you've solved hundreds and hundreds of coding problems. Yet you struggle to solve any new coding question that you've not seen before. Well, believe it or not, this is a pretty common situation a lot of software engineers find themselves during interview preparation. So in this video, I'll show you how you can greatly improve your problem solving by adopting a context-based learning strategy instead of mindlessly solving coding problems. And that should also dramatically improve your chances at succeeding at coding interviews. This video is sponsored by Educative. Hi folks, my name is Utsav. I'm a software engineer based in Seattle. I have over 20 years of experience in the industry and I'm currently a senior software engineer at Microsoft. If you're new to this channel, my goal here is to help you get the best out of your career by mentoring you around 5 key pillars of career development: technical skills, engineering efficiency, mindset, entrepreneurship, and financial freedom. So if that sounds interesting, please consider subscribing and follow me at Utsav for behind the scenes and monthly Q&As. Classical models rely solely on memorization and repetition for learning. You first remember something by memorizing it, then revisit that information periodically to retain it long term. While memorization and repetition are very powerful tools in information retention, they are far more effective when additional context about that information is introduced. I mentioned this study from Mains and Hoyes in a recent video about retaining information from reading books as well, but it basically states that adding context about a topic you're trying to learn helps you engage in something called reinstatement and integration, which happens when you encounter a topic that you've previously learned but with new and appropriate context. When the original and current context differ, relational processing takes place and a more interconnected memory representation is formed, helping you understand and retain the concept much better. So the main problem with existing interview prep platforms is that they heavily focus on the classical learning model, thus heavily prioritizing memorization and repetition over contextual learning. Not only is this much less effective, it also takes a far greater amount of time and effort to get the same results. This is why you hear people often mentioning crazy numbers like solving 500 or 1,000 coding questions. You can get much better results by solving far less problems if you're able to add context to your learning. But first, let me explain to you what I actually mean by lack of context. And I don't mean to pick on LeetCode or anything here. They're a great platform if you know how to use them effectively. I'm just showing them as an example because they are the de facto interview prep platform for most people. Take a look at this example where you're asked to find out if an array is monotonic or not. This is an easy problem, but the question is, when would you ever have to use a monotonic array in the real world? Can you form a mental model of how this would apply to any real problem? Okay, here's another one. Find the diameter of a tree. Why would anybody need to ever find the diameter of a tree in the real world? Can you think of a scenario? Hard to think of, right? Okay, final one. Alien dictionary, which is a hard problem. It's a graph problem. You're given a sorted list of words from an alien language with different lexicographical rules than English. And based on that sorted list, you have to figure out the alphabet ordering for that language. Okay, crazy problem. But even crazier, when would you ever need to work with an alien dictionary? This problem just sounds nonsensical. And now you're asking yourself, these are asked in interviews and you have to learn them? That's just crazy, right? Well, the truth is that these problems are actually grounded in reality. All of them represent very real problems that need to be dealt with quite frequently. The real issue is that the interview prep platforms just don't focus on providing the context that would help you make this problem relatable. Instead, you focus on practicing and remembering them as array problems, tree problems, or graph problems. This is where Educative has completely changed the game. I have tried literally every learning or interview prep platform that is out there, and very few, if any, approach learning in a context-based manner like Educative does. In fact, I made a learning roadmap a while back that many people loved, where I do the exact thing. I talk about concepts with the context of the real-world application. Educative's approach is very similar, only theirs is much more detailed than what I could fit in a 20-minute video. Their preparation model is also personalized for you based on your requirements and experience and time commitment, and they literally cover everything from the fundamentals and concepts as well as the actual problem solving practice. But above all, every problem you practice has real world context associated with it. This, as I mentioned earlier in the video, helps you engage in reinstatement and integration and is a much more effective way of learning than just memorization. But before you try to skip to the next section thinking this is just a 30-second ad read, it really isn't. Educative didn't ask me to say anything specific, and they didn't even see this video before it was published. I literally believe that Educative is the best technical interview prep and learning platform out there for software engineers, and I will do my best to show you examples of why I think so. And hopefully that can help you learn in a context-based manner. All right, first off, I need to go to the personalized path and create an interview prep for myself based on my requirements. Okay, so now that we have that, let's take a look at the modules. And if you see here, after a quick introduction to the fundamentals, you will notice that the modules aren't split into arrays, strings, queues, stacks, trees, graphs, etc. like they normally are. Instead, they're divided by real-world problems and companies with case studies of commonly used operations within these companies. Let's take a look at Netflix, for example. There's a brief intro about what Netflix is and what sort of problems their engineering team has to solve. And being a streaming platform, it's totally reasonable for them to allow their users to view top-rated movies worldwide, efficiently distribute content to different geographic regions, or do a popularity analysis to see what movies or shows are trending upwards, being more popular, and which ones are on the decline. And based on those requirements, you will be writing simplified implementations, which coincidentally happen to be very similar to the interview questions you were previously solving without any of this real-world context. Remember that we had no clue how one would utilize a monotonic array? Well, it turns out that it comes quite handy in popularity analysis. Best of all, each module not only gives you a real-world scenario like Netflix, but also provides you with a very nifty "What did we learn?" section that maps these real-world features or problems into interview-style problems that you'd normally see. So if you see here in Netflix case, identifying and separating titles with increasing or decreasing popularity uses the same idea as the monotonic array problem we discussed earlier in the video. Okay, let's look at a couple more examples. We also have Uber in here, and same as before, a quick intro here as well, and a set of features you as a Uber engineer would implement. And one of those features is to recommend Uber drivers a route that would maximize the probability of finding customers. Seems like a thing that you do at Uber. And if you look at the "What do we learn?" section for Uber, it turns out that the diameter of a tree is quite handy when choosing a route with the highest probability of finding customers. Now, this gives you much more context than what you probably had before, right? Okay, one last example to demystify the alien dictionary problem. There is a whole section on networking and cybersecurity and what problems engineers commonly face in this area. And one such problem is identifying dependencies for messages that are encrypted with a proprietary algorithm in a given network protocol. Turns out that if you have a sorted order of encrypted messages, you can actually reverse engineer the dictionary itself. And there's a full description of why, when, and how. And it's definitely not called Alien Dictionary. But if you look at the "What do we learn?" section, identifying alphabetical order from a bunch of messages neatly maps to the Alien Dictionary. These are just a few examples. You'll be amazed by how they have taken common interview-style coding problems and adapted them to provide you in-depth context of how they relate to real-world examples from top use cases like Netflix, Google, Amazon, Uber, Zoom, along with common computing scenarios like networking and operating systems, in addition to a bunch of popular games. They've also included low-level and object-oriented design, which is missing these days from most prep platforms. And in addition to that, they also have a refresher at the end where you can simply practice all of the problems. While I encourage you to emphasize context-based learning wherever possible, as I mentioned earlier in this video, memorization and repetition also have tremendous value. So that's one area I think Educative lacks a bit. A simple addition of of a LeetCode style submission tracker would help users track their repetitions. But then again, it's super easy to do by yourself by using something like Notion or Excel. And let's not forget that Educative is a learning platform as well, not just an interview prep platform. It provides far more value than just prepping for interviews. For example, if you want to learn a specific programming language or a framework, just follow that learning path. The real depth Educative has is its diversity of courses, labs, and skill paths that cover everything from the basics of coding to advanced distributed systems and machine learning. I cannot recommend it highly enough. And there's no wonder that almost 2 million software engineers from top companies like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Netflix, and Meta trust Educative for their skill development. So if this was enough evidence for you to at least give Educative a try, you can get 10% off by visiting educative.io/engineeringwithutsav. Link will be in the description below. I also have an entire playlist of videos to help you prepare for your technical interviews that cover coding, behavioral, and system design. They have much more detail about those interviews and tell you exactly how to structure them and prepare based on your role and experience. So definitely check that playlist out. Also, if you found this video useful, hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel for similar content. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.